I look back and the way William Branham put it in his harsher side of sermons, on this topic, he tended to call everything of historic Christianity just traditions or Babylon or this, that, or the other. And of course, Christmas is part of, historic or traditional Christianity. And so that was, number one thing he didn't like about it. And then, of course, number two is, I believe this is fairly universal in the message, nobody believes Jesus was actually born in December either.
Right.
That was another huge thing that they used to, completely say you should never celebrate Christmas. Jesus was not born in December. This was actually some pagan holiday to a sun god or something like that, I believe is the way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really odd, too, because in the message, we thought William Branham is the bringer of truth, and he's correcting all of the errors of the church. Well, if you go back and you look at, during this era, he was not alone in this, and I'll be honest, if he had have been alone in this and was, kicking against the pricks, so to speak, he wouldn't have done it because he would have alienated his crowd. He was preaching this because at that time it was very common to be anti-Christmas, anti-holiday, anti-cheer. Basically, it's a whole religion of the Grinch, right? And William Branham was just preying upon that sentiment that things weren't holy during Christmas. And I always go back to that verse in Colossians now that I've left the message. Let no one tell you, and I'm paraphrasing, you can go read it yourself, but Paul says, let no one tell you that you can't celebrate a holiday. And regardless of whether this holiday is on the right day or whether it's on the right month or whether it was, pagan origin, Paul is referring to holidays of pagan origin that are even worse than what they're talking about here. They were actually sacrificing human beings to these deities on these holidays of the solstice, etc. So Paul is telling you, don't let anybody tell you can't have a holiday, but don't go sacrifice your children, versus William Branham saying, no, you cannot do this, but I'm going to do it at home where nobody can see me.
Yeah, in our sect of the message, we used more or less that same passage of Scripture to say that, we're going to let everybody make up their own mind and everybody can celebrate if they want to, just keep it very modest and humble, right?
Yeah.
Don't get materialistic, don't get this, that, or the other. But then the people who didn't, then of course they always felt the class above. We're holier than you all. You all are still in pagan traditions, or you're, this, that, or the other. So there was always a two-tier approach about it, right? And the people who didn't celebrate Christmas tended to look very, very narrowly on the people who did, even though they somewhat accepted their right to do it. But if they caught anything at all that looked the least bit like excess, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're going to be outed, and someone's going to. At our church, John, I don't know. I guess you were in the press play churches, so I don't know if you had preachers that actually did things like I'm about to describe. The preachers would get in front of everybody. So you're in a crowd of hundreds of people, and they'll start talking about the things that you did specifically, and they'll, kind of berate you in front of the entire church, right? That's very common. And it's not always by name, but you know who they're talking about, they know who they're talking about, and so does half the people sitting there. So, if someone saw you with too many Christmas presents in your cart, right, you're going to get a sermon on materialism, and they're going to talk about the person who shopped at the same store that you was at, and what they saw, and couldn't believe how much money they were wasting on materialism, right? And so they would control any sort of excess that went on, pretty strongly.